Broadcasting from an undisclosed location in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, this is the Grudge Retort with Eric Blair and Dan O'Brien.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Grudge Retort with Eric Blair and Dan O'Brien. Today we have a lot to discuss. We're going to talk about the results in Alaska, Washington, and Hawaii, Arizona voter suppression, off-grid criminal activity. I don't know. We'll talk about it with Eric. This is the Grudge.
Grudge!
That was Eric Blair, by the way.
It was not. It was pre-recorded.
And in the studio today, we have a special guest, Danny Macias. Is that right?
That's correct.
Dan the Man Macias.
All right. So I thought today we could just start off with reading some headlines.
Go for it.
Some interesting headlines. Nothing in particular. You know, just going down my news feed. All right, that's all I'm doing.
Right.
Very, very.
I never thought about this ever.
Yeah.
First time ever. Folks.
Yeah. No,
you heard it here on the Grudge.
This is a new thing with radio. Nobody's ever done this before.
Having your phone in your hand?
No, just stealing other people's material. You know?
Oh, right. Yeah. Shoot, that's never happened on radio before.
Never. Number one story right off the bat. Trump campaign manager charged with battery in Florida. So wow. I was saying to you guys right before the show, you know it's election season when you see a story about campaign managers being arrested. You know,
right,
that happens all the time, right?
Yeah, in every single third world country.
Isn't that what this is?
Absolutely.
I thought that's where we lived.
Right. It's amazing that this kind of thing will happen. I mean, first it was his supporters that were beating up people, and now it's the actual campaign people. But that's okay, because Donald Trump is going to bail them out of prison, and he's going to financially pay for their legal counsel.
Yeah. He hasn't made a definitive call on that yet. They keep asking the one guy in, I forget where he just sucker punched a protester on the way out of the building. Everyone keeps asking him, so you're going to pay for the guy's legal fees because he got arrested, right?
Right.
And he's like, yeah, I'm still thinking about it. I don't know yet.
Wow. Because, well, as we know. Well, we'll talk about it later.
Yeah. We got a whole lot to talk about. All right, let me see if there's anything else interesting. Oh, the Apple case. The FBI has dropped their search for a backdoor into Apple's encryption.
Because they found one.
Yeah,
and they still don't want to say anything.
They found one themselves, yeah.
That's right. We don't need you to give it us permission anymore.
So just really quick, we have a lot to talk about. Danny, what do you think about the FBI's, efforts to try to force Apple into giving them a backdoor into their encrypted, iOS software, all that kind of stuff to get information off the iPhone of the San Bernardino shootings? Like, what's your take on this? Do you think the government was correct in trying to force Apple to do this? Do you think Apple was correct in putting up resistance to it? What's your thought?
Well, you put him on the spot now. We said we weren't going to do that.
Yeah, this is like the
I lied.
I can't think of a more controversial.
Yeah, we'll start off light.
Right. Okay.
We can just say yes or no then.
Right. Oh boy.
Put him on the spot.
What's your general idea? General take on the whole thing with the government trying to force Apple to do this? Do you think it was wrong?
Right.
Yeah, let him answer.
Yeah. I want to thank you so much for having me on.
It was great seeing you, Danny. Anyway, what's next on the list?
I smell breakfast cooking.
Yeah.
I think that from just in general, and I know that Eric's probably going to rip this apart in about 15 seconds, but that's fine. Just in general, I think that it just had to have some sort of a overwhelmingly important reason where this is just, I think that the government actually did something that a lot of people can agree is unfortunate, but we know that there's something that was an overwhelming reason where they had to step in and
for just a run-of-the-mill cases, things like that, you don't think they should just be able to unlock the encryption, but for something with overwhelming importance and reason.
Yeah, I do, and I think that that's a safe position for me to take. But that's really what I think about this from the little that I know. And remember, I'm the least informed man in the room, so yeah.
Well, actually, you'd be surprised. I actually agree with you.
His T-shirt says that, by the way.
Yes, he's very epic.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. I definitely agree with you on that one. I think that on individual incidents, that the government should partner with private companies such as that and say, hey, we only want to look at this one phone. We don't want to have a backdoor into every single phone that. So in other words, I think that's the biggest argument is, hey, we don't want to, the people don't want them to arbitrarily just go into anybody's phone anytime they want. Mm-hmm. So if they got a specific case, Apple already said, sure, you got a specific case, we'll help you.
And they've done that before with previous cases.
Right, but they don't want to give them, the keys to the city.
Yeah.
So, they should never give them the keys to the city.
No, well, their position, I think, and I'm the second most uninformed guy in the room, and interestingly enough, I'm the one on the radio. Yeah. But their position has been, once we do this for you once, then that's it. You have a universal key to do this whenever you want, and that's why they were kind of worried about, like you said, Eric, handing over the keys to the city.
Yeah, they don't need to do that. All they need to do is the Apple guy says, well, here's the data we have from that phone. Here you go. And they don't need to actually give them access to the phone.
Right.
Just here's the data on the phone.
Yeah.
End of story.
That makes sense.
Right.
That makes
and
sense.
they should do that.
Yeah.
If I was a private company and somebody was actually a proven terrorist, I would definitely give them, they came into Starbucks and got a, Frappuccino.
Right.
Here's your data.
If that's what you wanted to know, there you go.
Yeah. It was with a double pump of raspberry.
Right.
That was the key to everything.
Right. Absolutely.
I was actually surprised this became such a big deal. And I didn't know the specifics of the case as much as I probably should have. But I think in an overall sense, I was a little happy that a lot of the tech companies like Google, Apple, all of those guys kind of banded together and said, no, this is not cool. This opens the door to other things that are very dangerous. And
Thank
I thought
goodness they did, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Danny, that in instances like this, when the government really has an overwhelming need for information, it's probably a good idea. But I'm starting to kind of think generally that it's dangerous to kind of hand too much power and information over to the government. And I was really happy to see, a lot of the tech companies kind of coming together and saying, no, this isn't going to happen. Sorry.
Certainly.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, let's get to my sheet of paper here.
What?
Those are just random headlines.
You wrote on a piece of a tree.
I know.
In the digital age, you use ink. Where they made it in India.
Yeah.
And then you use paper that came from Northern California pines.
I would use my iPhone, but I don't want the government to be able to come in.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Good point. Go ahead.
I can burn a piece of paper after the show is done, and nobody will know.
Okay, go.
Okay, the first topic here is the results in Alaska, Hawaii, and the state of Washington. I think it was over the weekend. Was it not? Saturday was the big Saturday, yeah. Mm-hmm. Huge wins for Bernie Sanders and Eric.
Landslide.
The landslide wins.
Clean sweep.
Here are the figures for those of you who are living under a rock over the weekend. Hawaii, 70% Bernie Sanders. Alaska, 81.6%. I'm going to round it to 82% for our purposes. Washington, 73% for Bernie Sanders.
Right.
Those are not just landslides; those are earthquake landslides.
That's right. Those are tsunamis.
Yeah,
those are massive. Those are planet killers.
Yeah. What's your take on this? Does this do anything for Bernie Sanders' campaign moving forward? What does this mean for the overall Democratic campaign here?
Well, it means we're so much closer to the magic numbers that Bernie needs to get. When you take out the superdelegate fiasco out of the mix, we're about 260, 240 votes between Hillary and Bernie. I think it's even less than that, actually.
Right.
That's not even counting the uncounted Washington delegates that we still haven't figured out yet, that are actually from the election that still haven't been awarded to Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, let's stop for a sec, because I saw a little bit about this coming through our newsfeed. And Danny, I don't know if you've heard this, but there's a lag in the delegates that are being awarded to Bernie based on his win. He's supposed to get many more. So you don't know what's going on there?
Nobody knows what's going on. People from Washington State don't know what's going on. The Twitter feed went crazy afterwards saying, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
It shouldn't be happening. It's the only state yet to have that problem, period. And yet since then, I mean, apparently they're the only state who does that.
Yeah, no explanation,
Nothing. No idea. It's a mystery.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Except there's one really strange thing about it. In the state of Washington, they overwhelmingly had Bernie supporters vote for him. But all the elected officials and all the government officials who are superdelegates have already pledged for Hillary.
Right.
So the people who actually run all the elections, who do this whole stalling thing, they're Hillary supporters.
Right.
So it smells of damn corruption.
Yeah, well,
period.
I was going to ask you the loaded question is, does that mean anything? Like,
Yes, it does.
If all the people,
means lots.
If the referees of the game are in the bag for one team, do you think they're treating the process fairly and openly?
I'm not a sports fan, but I can tell you right off the bat, yes, that's unsporting.
Yeah. Okay.
Very unsportsmanlike.
Well, that brings up an interesting point that we can probably talk about because that's not the only state with that case where the superdelegates are going one way and the voters are going another way. Here in Hawaii, I think both senators to the U.S. Senate are Hillary supporters, regardless of the fact that, Hawaii just went for Bernie 70%.
Not for long.
Would you have a prediction? What do you think?
Yeah, I predict we'll kick them out of office as soon as we can if they don't change their mind.
It's hard to kick a sitting senator out of office. I mean,
It's called an election.
Well, look at the two previous senators, Akaka and.
Did they vote for Hillary?
Well, I don't know.
Okay, then. Next topic.
All right. Well, what do you think, Danny? Do you think the super delegates and the party bosses, the leaders, the senators, state congressmen, all that are considered super delegates in the Democratic Party? Do you think they're going to change their vote based on the popular vote of the electorate? Because right now most of them are in the bag for Hillary, but there's pressure being put on them to change their votes based on their state's election results. So what do you think?
Right. I would hope so, and also I think that this has happened before, where you see one candidate is favored, and then the people start to support a different candidate, and they can be swayed. So yeah, I think that it's still malleable.
Yeah, the same thing happened with Barack Obama and Hillary back in 2008. Mm-hmm. I think that was where I first learned about this superdelegate thing, where they were all planning on voting for Hillary, but as the tide shifted towards Obama, all of a sudden they started to shift.
Right. That was one of the things that I had in mind too. I mean, we've seen it happen pretty recently where something like this was happening.
Yeah, I think the difference this time, though, is to me in 2008, Obama seemed like everybody wanted to get on board with him. He just seemed very electable. Mm-hmm. He wasn't a very far left liberal, although he played that dance during the caucuses and primaries to toe the line, the liberal line, and then of course he positioned himself more centrist in the general election, which is kind of the rule of presidential politics, at least. But this time with Bernie Sanders, I don't see him as the kind of photogenic, natural candidate that people are going to gravitate towards as this goes on. I think if he wants to win this process and become the Democratic nominee, he's going to have an uphill battle all the way to the very end. Whereas Obama, I don't know what state changed things or if there was a definitive moment, but you saw the tide shifting in his favor back in 2007, 2008 when this process was going on.
Right, but Bernie Sanders is already ahead of that. So when you look at the historical records, Bernie Sanders already has more delegates than he did at this time. And he has more states in the bag. And when you look at the actual, the way that Bernie Sanders started way back when at a really low number, now he's been climbing ever since, while Hillary's been going downhill ever since. And so when you say uphill battle, he's been doing that since day one. It's been a year now, and he keeps going up and up and up and up and up. So I just see that trend continuing. Yeah. And when that trend continues, he wins.
I think for me, the uphill battle refers more to the insiders in the Democratic Party.
Those people don't matter.
Well, they do as far as the superdelegate count.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
How so?
Because I see it as we're talking a 4-year battle here. It's not just today. So Bernie Sanders is not just about this election. The whole Bernie Sanders wave is about our politics in America. So sure, we may or may not win this election based on the superdelegates, but guess what's going to happen? Pretty soon, people are going to wake up and say, hey, guess what? the reason why Bernie didn't get it is because of superdelegates. So guess what's going to happen in the next 4 years? No more superdelegates. Those people will either be replaced, or we'll take away the superdelegates entirely, or we'll just stop having the two-party system.
Well, we're going to continue this discussion and get to a little bit of Arizona voter suppression. We have a topic concerning off-the-grid living in Alabama that I think is going to be really interesting. I think we do. It's on my list. I have no idea who put it there, but right after this commercial break, we'll be back with more Grudge. Stay tuned.
KAKU would like to thank the underwriters and sponsors that make the Voice of Maui possible. Underwriters like Waui Maui Kava Bar, located at 333 Dairy Road, featuring a full sushi bar, American and Hawaiian cuisine, and now open for breakfast. Open 7 days a week at 8 a.m. Maui Waui Kava Bar is proud to support free speech on Maui. Please support the businesses that, through their generous donations, empower free speech and the Maui community.
I'm Joel Agnew.
And I'm Michael Pulliam.
Join us Fridays at 3 o'clock on 88.5 for What's Going On. Sponsored in part by Interlotus Imports.
From performing arts to movie festivals, concerts to comedians, each week Joel and I go through the what's happenings around the island on stage and on screen.
Michael and I also have great actors, writers, and singers stopping by to give you a peek behind the curtain of upcoming shows.
So join us Fridays at 3 p.m. on KAKU 88.5 FM.
The voice of Maui.
Nakekio Emilia is a program for children and teens 3 to 18 grieving the death of a parent, brother, sister, Ohana member, or close friend. We provide peer support groups, not therapy, and all groups are free. We have openings now, and if you're interested, please call Dr. Brooke Brown at 214-9832 for information, or contact us through our website, nkoemaui.org. Aloha.
Hi, I'm Shaggy Jenkins. Join me afternoons at 1, Monday through Friday for Maui Matters, where you'll hear in-depth dissertations, conscious conversation, and informative information. Look, it's hard stringing together big words like that, but I only have 30 seconds to tell you that if you need to know it, you want to know more about it, or haven't even heard of it before, you'll want to join me for Maui Matters on the Voice of Maui, KAKU 88.5 FM.
We're back. More Grudge. How you doing? Thanks for sticking with us. I think I want to keep talking about well, we were just talking about superdelegates and
Stupid delegates.
stupid delegates.
Stupid delegates. The stupid delegates started way back in the South.
I don't even know the history of the superdelegates.
There is no history.
All right, but you're saying after Bernie Sanders, if he loses this process, Hillary gets nominated, goes to the general election, there's going to be a backlash against the superdelegates, and they will be done away with by the next election. Is that what you're saying?
Well, see, if Hillary gets elected, my crystal ball says that she'll be in for 8 years, and during that process, we'll eliminate the superdelegate process or the Democratic Party. You take your pick.
Why don't Republicans have superdelegates?
They do.
Oh, they do? I thought they did away with superdelegates.
No, it's a smaller number, I hear, but I've tried my best not to pay attention to their superdelegate process.
Okay.
This election.
Does anybody know what the purpose of superdelegates is?
Yes.
What's their reason for being?
Yeah, their reason for being is so that the establishment doesn't have to fight against grassroots politicians like Bernie Sanders.
So it's easier for the establishment to get elected? Is that what it is?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, it's so that they can keep the same cronies in office that are doing favors for corporations and the other parts of the oligarchy.
I don't know why this scares me now, and it didn't scare me, 8 years ago when Obama used superdelegates to actually win the nomination. Like I said, after the tide started shifting.
Yeah, they were in the pocket of Hillary back then too.
Yeah.
But suddenly, wow, they all went for Obama, and was in worse shape than Bernie is.
Well, I guess that's my point is, when I say he was more photogenic or whatever, I think he was a movement candidate in the sense that he was going to be the first African-American president.
But he didn't have a bird land on his podium.
That's true.
So there you go.
That's true.
End of story.
Somebody said that it was a bird, basically, since Bernie Sanders can't tweet. This was the first tweet he's ever sent.
Bernie Sanders
bird.
tweets every single day.
Do you think he personally tweets, or
I don't know. I doubt it. But the thing about it is you know the type of bird that was?
What?
It's called the White House finch.
The White House finch? Are you kidding me?
I added the white part to it. It's called a house finch. It's the White House finch.
And you're basically saying that Mother Nature has endorsed Bernie Sanders. And
I did.
Yeah.
I did. And I got 79 million impressions on that tweet.
79,000,
I'm sorry.
I was going to say.
I had millions of impressions.
Ladies and gentlemen,
No.
Eric Blair broke the internet.
Yes, it's broken. It's broken by that fallacy.
You're now an honorary Kardashian.
That's
Thank
right.
you very much.
Whoa. Hold down, Slim. But, yeah.
All right, Danny, I'm going to put you on the spot again. What is your take on superdelegates after this election? Do you think they're going to go the way of the dodo bird or the house finch, or are they going to be part of the process in the next election for president? What do you think?
Well, I would have to know how entrenched they are. I mean, it would be nice to think that if something's broken that we could change it rapidly.
Yeah.
However, it seems to be a good club to be a part of if you're in it.
Yeah. And,
So, they
No
might
doubt.
be dug in pretty deep and we don't know, But it would be nice to see something work better than what's going on right now.
yeah, I think the general consensus, at least among the 70% of people that voted for Bernie, the 81% of people that voted for Bernie in Alaska, Washington, 73%, all those people say that something has to change. Mm-hmm. And I think they are entrenched. I mean, I had a really good friend in the polling place that I went to vote for on Saturday here in Hawaii. A really good friend of mine, it's like a light was turned on in his thinking. And he's like, I just realized that these parties are clubs. They're closed clubs, and you cannot participate unless you become a member of their club.
That's right.
And he's just starting to realize that these caucuses, they're not even called caucuses here in Hawaii. What are they called now?
Yeah, they're like...
presidential preference poll.
Yeah, the preference poll. That's right. And they're also, a lot of people are mistaken, and they think that it's some kind of a law that they should be allowed to vote. But they can make up their own hours. They can do what they want. It's not governed by election laws.
Exactly. Yeah. These are closed party functions. These are not run by any state or anything. These are run by the local or the state Democratic Party, the state Republican Party. They're not sanctioned by any official government agency or election office or anything like that.
That's right.
And I think that's what turned my friend's, lights on in his head. He's like, this is really a closed system. It's not. This isn't meant to be like a democratic process where people come and cast their ballots.
So I'll give you another example of how undemocratic it is.
Yeah.
So I went to my precinct here in Maui County, and I was involved at the very, very beginning. I got there early. My daughter volunteered in line helping people with forms and that kind of thing. We had a huge line. And basically the representatives that are already in that position of like the ones who are controlling the actual election, those people, they are from the Democratic Party, and they're the ones who are handing out the ballots, and they're in there working. Part of their responsibility at this caucus or preference poll was that they had to elect officers and delegates after the basically preference poll. That was part of their job. But they didn't tell anybody about it. I listened very carefully and watched. They had hidden under their files with the actual people where people could volunteer to be a delegate or volunteer to be an officer in the Democratic Party so that they can be involved in the Democratic Party politics in the state of Hawaii. But they hid those things under there, didn't tell anybody about it. What they do every year, and we knew about this coming in, and a few of us were able to take over seats by demanding that our name be put on those lists. And a few of us are just went around and said, hey, you got to bring out your list. You got to tell people that they can get on that. And then we unseated almost every single incumbent in our district and several other districts on the island and put in pro-Bernie supporter delegates and pro-Bernie supporter officers in every precinct.
And the reason this is important, I believe, without knowing too much about the process, but if it's similar to the Republican process in any sense, the reason you want to put, in this case, pro-Bernie delegates is because if it does become a contested convention, if delegates have to vote in earnest for their choice of candidate, if it goes to second or third balloting at the convention, you don't want Hillary supporters in there because no matter at that point it doesn't matter if Bernie won by a landslide here in Hawaii, they would vote for Hillary, and then they would not reflect the will of the people who voted. Is that correct?
That's part of it. So I think the bigger thing is that the Democratic Party is the one who handles in Hawaii they handle how those caucus or preference polls work, and so the rules for that are created by these people who get elected into office in every year. And so what they would do is the incumbent would tell their family to come on as soon as everybody leaves. You can all just volunteer, and then you'll automatically be in with uncontested.
Right.
So every year that there's huge families and friends that get to be in these offices, and then they actually go to all the different votes, and they are involved in all the different policy decisions for the Democratic Party in the state.
Okay.
It's pretty scary.
And important positions like that are basically just handed to somebody because nobody knows that they could actually
sign up.
Sign up.
They can just write their name on like for example, in my precinct, in my precinct location, there were 6 different precincts in it. Mm-hmm. And on my list, when he pulled the paper, there was no names on it, 5 different positions, and there were 8 delegates that were empty.
Wow.
And so everybody just put their name on it. And at the end, we all waited. We were like the only one that waited around. And sure enough, everybody that put their name down. I put my name as president and delegate, and I got both.
Wow!
Just by putting my name down, because it was uncontested, and that's what the incumbents wait for. They don't say anything. They wait for everybody to leave, and then when the room's empty, okay, let's do our vote now.
Yeah.
And then they shoo them in.
This is like out of a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, where they post that
or
piece of paper.
1984.
Somewhere in the basement, somewhere there's a piece of paper posted.
Yeah.
Oh wait, you didn't
only
see
knew
that?
about it, right?
Yeah,
But it was posted.
It was publicly posted.
That's right. It was posted way over there in very fine print.
Inside the janitor closet that was locked.
You didn't see that? It was next to the mop.
Well, in my preferential polling place or whatever you want to call it, they didn't mention anything. And, I stood in line for, I think, 2 hours. The whole process took 2.5 hours on my Saturday. Mm-hmm. It was a major commitment to do it. I'm not saying, I'm not complaining about it, but certainly I think there's ways to make the whole process more efficient. And I'm not digging on the volunteers there at all. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of the volunteers put in a lot of time and effort, unpaid.
They did a great job.
They did an amazing job. But I think at the state level, it shows a lot of incompetence to know that the turnout is going to be close to or surpass record-breaking numbers, and they did nothing to prepare for it, really. Mm-hmm. And I also
especially in Maricopa County, in Arizona,
even in Arizona, yeah, which is what we're going to talk about next. But from my point of view, I got a little mad at the local media here. Here in Maui County, there were massive lines in every precinct or polling place that I saw, upcountry and Kihei, everywhere. Not one thing I saw on any website or local news outlet. No pictures of lines. All they did was post the results at about 9:30 that night. Mm-hmm. They didn't talk about that. There was no witnessing of the lines that were going on. I thought that was a really big missed opportunity here in local media.
It's actually not a missed opportunity. It seems to me like it was orchestrated because Bernie was a winner. If Hillary had an outpouring of public, new voters and whatnot, like Bernie did, mm-hmm. I think we'd see it all over the news.
Yeah, there was one particular local news outlet that I won't name by name, but I actually I messaged them through their Facebook page and said, really? It was about 9:00 at night. I said, there's no photos of the lines. There's no story about the record-breaking turnout here in Maui County.
And they messaged you back, yep, really.
Yeah, well, about 15 minutes later, they messaged me back with a story about the results of the election. And that was it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for the results. I already know because I was there.
Yeah, I was actually there. But you're not going to talk about what everyone else here on the island is talking about, which is voting, because there were huge lines, all that kind of stuff. It just didn't make any sense to me. I thought naturally it would be a big news story, but Who knows? I guess I'm wrong. That's why I'm not in the news business.
That's right.
All right.
Well, what are we talking about next?
Next, we're going to be talking about quickly about Arizona suppression, but we're going to take a quick break, and we invite you to join us right afterwards. Coming up next, we're going to be discussing some of the weird things that are going on in Arizona, and I think Eric's going to be able to talk about that a little. And if we get to it, we're going to talk about the off-the-grid situation in Alabama.
Doubtful.
All right, we'll be right back with The Grudge.
Preparing for death can change your life. I'm Bodie B. Join me on Death Tracks, the show about wholehearted and sacred living and dying. We will follow tracks, make tracks, and play musical tracks as we explore aging, dying, and death. We'll have interviews and time for call-ins from our listeners. Join the conversation every Tuesday from 3 to 5 p.m. here on 88.5 FM, KAKU, the voice of Maui.
KAKU would like to thank the underwriters and sponsors that make the Voice of Maui possible. Underwriters like Awazul Wellness and Weight Loss Center, located at Wailea Gateway Center, Suite A104. From organic cold-pressed juices to state-of-the-art weight loss techniques to help you meet your fitness goals. Awazul Wellness and Weight Loss Center is proud to support Community Talk on KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. Please support the businesses that, through their generous donations, empower free speech in the Maui community.
Hi, this is Shaggy Jenkins, Program Director here at KAKU 88.5 FM, the voice of Maui. Now, as you know, KAKU is a listener-supported radio station. Now, if you're a business who truly cares about free speech and would like to help us support the voice of Maui, give us a call at 871-5554. That's 871-5554. And become part of the voice of Maui and Maui's only free speech radio station.
Hi, this is Larry John with Larry John in the Tub, Maui's celebrity radio show. Listen to Larry John in the Tub Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. and Monday through Friday at noon right here on KAKU 88.5 FM. May I give you a word of advice? You'll be glad you did. Larry John and the Tub right here on the voice of Maui.
Welcome back to the Grudge Retort. This is Dan. I'm in the studio with Eric and Danny. We're gonna continue a little bit more with some election talk. And Eric, I wanted to throw it to you. You had something interesting from the Hillary campaign, or about the Hillary campaign is that it, or what were you going to talk about?
Oh, here we go. Soundbite.
You should be willing to campaign for every vote. You should be willing to debate anytime, anywhere.
Anytime, anywhere, she says. Who's that, folks? That is Hillary Clinton.
So she, and this is something I really want to talk about. I know we have a lot to discuss, but this was really interesting.
We should vote. We should be able to debate anytime, anywhere.
Yeah.
This is an election for a very important office.
But all of a sudden, her campaign says that she will not debate Bernie Sanders unless he changes his tone.
So
what does that mean?
He's not smiling enough.
So unless he stops telling the truth, she won't debate him.
No more truth. How dare you tell the truth?
So really, I mean, I can't believe this is the best their campaign manager or their spokesperson can come up with, is saying, well, he needs to change his tone or we're not going to debate him.
Right. That's the story they're putting out, but they really don't want to do a debate in New York because right now they have a fairly good standing, and if they go in and debate, then her numbers are just going to start dropping.
Yeah, strategically, I mean, I don't blame the Clinton people for not wanting to debate, because as a strategy 101 for presidential politics, if you're in the lead, there's no reason to debate. All you can do is make a mistake and lose your lead. So it's to their advantage to avoid any more debates as long as they're winning in New York or whatever.
Yeah, Danny, what do you think about New York? Do you think anybody in New York is going to go for Bernie or Hillary? What do you think they stand? You know anything about New York?
I don't. No, I can't speak to this particular thing.
I thought you were Mr. New York.
No. Yeah.
So I mean, it's a little bit of a trick to kind of play gotcha with her.
Right.
You know, when she was challenging Obama, I think that's where the soundbite came. When she was challenging him to a debate, she was losing in the primary, so it was to her advantage to debate,
right,
as it is with Bernie Sanders now. But My grudge in this instance.
No, it's a grudge. Okay.
My grudge in this instance is poor campaign managing.
Oh,
I mean, you don't kind of complain about somebody's tone in a presidential race.
Well, but there's been a lot of people that have said, a lot of feminists have said, hey, wait a minute, why are people telling, Hillary, oh, she's got to smile more and she shouldn't be so angry and that kind of thing. And I agree with them. People shouldn't tell her when to smile or, to curb her behavior. She's running for office. Let her do her thing. She's an independent person. She can do what she wants. By the same token, so can Bernie.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to tone it down.
No. Well, that's the point. I mean, what is she going to run into if she does run up against Trump? Is he going to tone it down? I mean, come on. She's going to have to be prepared for bombs being thrown at her, verbal bombs. I mean,
maybe just verbal.
Yeah. I mean, come on. I mean, to complain about that.
You can't handle the truth.
Yeah. It was kind of, to me, it was petty. It was like, come on. If you don't want to debate, come up with a better reason than that.
That was weak.
That was pretty weak, in my opinion. So, just talking about that. But let's quickly move on to our next subject, since we said we were going to touch upon it. Arizona voter suppression.
Maricopa.
Yeah, so
real simple.
If people weren't following this before, there were huge lines in Arizona for and that was a primary contest, correct?
Right.
All right.
They were expecting about 800,000 people. The records show right now about 178 or 175,000 people pre-voted by mail, and that for some strange reason in this county where they had this massive number, only like 30,000 people actually voted for the Democratic Party, which makes no sense at all on the day.
No.
There might have been a few in the mail-ins, but it's very strange, and so a lot of them are really upset. So there's a lot of videos going around of the committee, the election committee hearings in Maricopa County, and people are outraged. In fact, they just arrested a guy wearing a Guy Fawkes mask in the audience because he was wearing a Guy Fawkes mask.
And that was it.
Totally offensive, not even close, but yeah.
What I think the significant thing I noticed about this video, I saw this on YouTube, the significant thing to me was in past videos that are similar to this, you see kind of a complacent crowd around them that not doing anything because they feel powerless. They don't want to get arrested themselves. They kind of stay back and just videotape it, but they don't actively participate.
Not this time.
No, this time every single person in the gallery up there stood up and started chanting
and screaming and yelling and saying, "Hey, leave this kid alone." Because the guy wasn't doing anything.
He was just sitting there.
Right.
Yeah.
But the police were on high alert because there's a lot of angry and upset voters there. And if you see some of the other videos, they're really volatile and screaming and pounding on the podium, and they're really angry there because they feel honestly that the election committee really screwed up.
Yeah, well, this is just a snippet of a larger theme running through this election season is just voter anger. I really feel like people are just fed up, and this is how it's coming out. And if you're in law enforcement or part of the power structure, I think the last thing you want to do is incite that by arresting somebody who's literally just sitting in a seat, not even doing anything.
Right, and that the whole idea of law enforcement has always been your job to de-escalate, not to escalate.
Yeah, and part of the escalation in this video, at least, was that they were choking him, they were pushing him up against the edge of a seat. I think they were cutting off his circulation.
Right.
A lot of people started to get actually worried for the guy's physical well-being.
Well, the escalation started when they approached the guy from all corners. They surrounded him. He was just sitting there quietly. So I don't know. I think the escalation starts when you threaten, and when a bunch of cops encircle somebody, that's a threat. Today, in today's age, when about every 30 seconds we see another video of cops beating an innocent person to death, I think when cops surround you, you should be nervous.
Yeah.
That's called terrorism.
Well, especially if you're just kind of sitting there not doing anything and you're being surrounded by cops. It'd be different if you were waving a gun or something around.
Sure. Or even if you were being violent, or if you were throwing things, or if you were doing something.
Or yelling. Or
screaming and yelling. Then you got to calm somebody down. Got that. Okay, but not in this case.
Yeah, not in this case.
Well, speaking of the police state, I got another soundbite for you.
All right, let's go.
To fight for our rights, but now he says his own rights being threatened. The city condemned
from
Tyler
Alabama.
Truitt's property. The city filed a lawsuit calling his self-sufficient lifestyle unsafe. Truitt says he's not hurting anyone and deserves to live on the land he owns. WFF48's Lauren Bale joins us now with his story. Lauren?
Many would call it the American dream, only owning 2 acres of land and living completely independently off of that land. The city says that's a violation of city ordinance, and officials are threatening to arrest Tyler Truitt and his girlfriend, Soraya Hamar. The couple says they'd rather be arrested than leave their land.
And you know, he's this guy is he's a vet, and he's bought his own land, and basically he is living off the grid. And so apparently the city officials came onto his land, illegally trespassed on his property without the owners of the property's permission, posted a sign basically saying that this property is not habitable, and condemning the property, and that if they go back into their own house, that's trespassing and they'll be arrested.
That it's interesting to me. Actually, it's a little scary to me. I'm not a big off the grid guy. I like my MTV.
Well, he could have MTV. We just don't know.
Yeah, just solar powered MTV.
He's guilty of MTV.
Yeah. But to actually punish somebody for wanting to live off the grid, that's kind of stretching it for me. And I'm a pretty moderate guy. I think you could agree, Eric.
I don't agree. I'm supposed to not agree.
No, you're supposed to agree with that.
So the bottom line is the way that our system is currently working, especially with the off-grid folks, is that. So here he is. He's minding his own business, not causing any problems locally. He's doing his thing. They come on his property. They condemn his property. They make it illegal for him to enter his own house. Then they eventually arrest him because he doesn't have any place else to live. So they eventually arrest him. And so when they arrest him, then he can no longer pay the taxes on his property. Then they take away his property. So now we have another homeless person on the street or paying rent to some other rich person because they took away his land and property.
And what was his original offense? He just wanted to live off the grid. That was it.
He was a U.S. veteran that was trying to raise his family on his own terms.
A veteran?
Yeah.
And he actually served in Iraq? Is that true?
I don't know where he served. All I know, I'm not sure if he was the Marines or Army, but he was in the service.
I think that's a story that you at home in your car and all of us here probably should look a little more into, because that's... it's concerning on a lot of different levels. I think, for me, I'm kind of like a small government person, just in the sense, not in social services sense, but I think, if you own the land, you're not doing any harm to anyone else, and you happen to be doing things differently than your neighbor, that's not enough to condemn a property.
Yeah, they're not connected to the grid, and therefore they're not funneling money into the grid regardless of usage. That's what they want.
What do you think is preventing local governments, even here in Hawaii, from writing into the code or the law things that would allow people to live off the grid? Why do they want people connected to the grid? What's the advantage of that to the state or to
control?
In what sense?
Revenue. Control tax revenue, because then they get to say, oh, look, we have so many houses, they're all connected to the grid. That's their way to make money. See, when you connect to the grid, you got to pay for a permit to do that. You got to hire a contractor who then pays taxes to do that. So there's a whole bunch of tax-related issues that are pertaining to it. All the construction, there's taxes involved in it. There's permit fees, there's permit costs, maintenance, and then you're regularly attached to that system.
Yeah, and this brings up a point to me that I just thought about is, a lot of people try to focus on the federal government as, taking over control and being all too powerful. But this is a local government doing this.
Right.
Yeah, this isn't the feds.
Right. That's absolutely right. It's local government, and that's where almost all of it started.
Wow. All right. Do we want to touch on anything else? Let's quickly talk about the Syrian conflict.
Oh my goodness.
We have 1 minute and 20 seconds to summarize the Syrian conflict.
Okay, great. The Syrian conflict. Last week we just had a situation where CIA-led CIA funded and supported, advised Syrian troops are fighting against the Pentagon I don't know how to say this in 30 seconds, but apparently it's the CIA funding one side and the Pentagon funding the other side, and they're fighting each other on the border of the Turkish border of Syria.
And all of them are with our weapons and our guns.
M16s versus M16s.
So you've got U.S. weapons pointed at each other because we've tried to pick the good guy in this situation where there is no good guy.
Right, there's two bad guys. They're both the United States over there funding two different factions.
And that's the big concern with this in 30 seconds is that, trying to intervene in this kind of stuff makes absolutely no sense. Because basically, what you're doing is trying to solve a problem that can't be solved with U.S. intervention. It just can't be done.
Nope.
And I'm trying to understand what the impetus is for us to try to get involved in a no-win situation.
We shouldn't be there. It's way too much money into military funding.
All right, we're out of here. Thank you for listening to The Grudge.